Welcome to the first ever Total Croatia News video podcast. It's a new series for us. We're going around Croatia and the region, talking to some of the more interesting characters that are bringing interesting contributions to this part of the world. I'm in a very, very unusual place, an English pub in a field in the middle of nowhere, not far from the oldest continuously inhabited town in Europe, in eastern Croatia. With me is a man called Steve Gaunt, who has been in Croatia since 1991, and has a rather fascinating story, even though he's a Yorkshireman. I first met Steve a couple of years ago, and one of the most interesting things he said on the first night, to show the very different life that he's had in Croatia than I've had in my 20 years, was he said to me, "Paul, you're the first foreigner I've ever met in Croatia that lives here who's never fought, who didn't fight in the war." And my response to him was, "Steve, you're the very first foreigner I've met in Croatia who lives here, who did fight in the war." Because I've been living on the coast, and Steve's been here where all the fighting was. He stayed in Vinkovci, and it's a really interesting chap. He's done some very, very interesting things since then. He doesn't know how to drink his beer, unfortunately.
I'm spilling it down myself.
It's not his fault, you know.
I'm sorry, I've got my drinking trousers on.
Okay, there we go. So, Steve, welcome, and thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for that introduction. It was wonderful. I hardly recognised myself.
Well, yeah, we'll try and get into you in a bit. Let's just go back. I want to cover a whole bunch of projects because you want to talk about the war. You're also very into metal detecting.
Oh, I don't want to talk about the war.
I don't care. It's my podcast. So
go on.
And then I want to talk a little bit about your time in Croatia, 30 years, your reflections, a bit about local football.
During the war, that kind of
stuff. So let's just go back and, how did you end up coming to Croatia in the first place?
Well, that's easy. That's an easy question. I caught a plane. But before that, I used to work in tourism, and I was the overseas operations manager for a very popular Yorkshire firm that expanded into Scotland as well, and bought numerous other businesses. And we had campsites, apartments and hotels from Spain through France, Italy and into Slovenia, and occasionally around Istria on the coast, Porridge, for example. And I worked for them for 2 years on a campsite in Blanes, and I was their manager. And it was hell on earth because it was very, very badly run. And gradually I turned it around, at least in our area, and they were impressed by that. And one of the directors left, and they gave me his job, not as a director. I gave myself the name, overseas operations manager. And any problem in Europe was my problem. I used to train the staff, find equipment, even design uniforms, handbooks, everything. Everything was to do outside England was my responsibility, and it was a heavy one, and it taught me how to deal with the public a great deal. And for instance, if we had a fire in a campsite in Spain and people were coming to there and there's nowhere to stay, and I'm in Italy, I had to get there and sort it out, and the other way around. So I knew a little bit about what was then Yugoslavia, and I joined the.
What year was that?
That was from 89-90. I think I was, especially in 91 again, we were there. I came when the fighting was just finishing. Is it Novgorod on the border there in Slovenia? When you come from Italy, we were there and we saw the burnt tanks and everything like that. It was quite fun for us, It wasn't fun for them, but it was fun for us to see. Yeah. So I got more interested in the story, and I'm politically minded. And I noticed that there was a huge Serb minority in Croatia, and it wasn't going to be easy, as it was for the Slovenes, who just basically kicked them all out in 6 weeks. And that's why there's still Slovenians in the army, so it was a little bit strange that they were killing their own people, but there you go. So I thought, well, they're not going to have it so easy, and of course they didn't. Now, by end of October, I returned to England, and I was going through the process of, new handbooks, new uniforms, what am I going to do? But it was not much going on, and I was starting to get itchy, and I didn't like what was happening. And a lot of people in Croatia don't know this, but the ITN and BBC coverage of the early stages of the war were very good. They were excellent. They showed everything that was happening. I'd seen more horrible, terrifying things on British television than I've ever seen on Croatian television, really. And they saw the massacre of Voci. We actually saw the bodies. We actually saw the Serbs running across the fields laughing.
Seriously?
Yeah, really. I've seen that once in England, and it's never been on television anywhere else.
Yeah.
I've never seen it again. And I was shocked. And I thought, well, someone's going to do something. But of course, nobody did. Everybody had businesses and deals with Yugoslavia, and they didn't know how to handle it breaking up.
Yeah.
If the position of Croatia would have been where Serbia is, and Serbia by the sea, it would have ended totally differently.
Yeah.
But Croatia was a tourist destination, and it had money coming in that way. And even during the war, there was tourists. There was Austrians and Germans at the boat on the sea. I saw them often. So I said to my boss, I said, look, you don't need me here through winter. I'll go. I'll see what's needed. I'll see what we can do. Maybe we can send them stuff or whatever. And off I go. And these other people say, oh, we'll come in. I said, no, I'm going on my own. I don't have responsibility of you. So I came. I got to Zagreb. I volunteered. I said, where do I go? And they sent me up to Tushkanac and found a lot of English people there.
Okay.
And we stole some uniforms. We stole a couple of rifles because nobody knew what to do with us. Every time I said, when can we go? They said, oh, try the kitchen, and they'll take us out to the kitchen and make us eat.
Let's just so you come to Zagreb, you want to volunteer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, which office do you go to?
I just talked to a bloke on the street in the station. There was two soldiers there, and they were quite taken aback. And they pointed me to Tushkanac, and up there I went. I found others in the same position.
Right.
Nobody had any idea what to do with us.
Okay.
So
So
we got uniforms, a couple of rifles amongst the 10 of us. And somebody drove us, a minibus drove us to Vinkovci. We were supposed to be going to Vukovar.
Yeah.
We arrived somewhere around the 9th of November in Vinkovci, and we stayed in our cell. Trained, we got to use we got to play with the rifles because I'd never had a gun in my hand before. I got pretty good at it. And eventually was then trying to find a place to be because there was a huge amount of distrust. Now, the British were there before. The British would come maybe just a week before, but they were like this, they were acting all superior because they got there before us, so we didn't want to be with them. Eventually found a place to go, which was right in the front line of Vinkovci, next to Mirkovci and Seric, and we were taken in there. And that's it, our war started.
And you were commanded by who? And
well, it was the Samostalno Vinkovac Kasatnia, 109 Brigade, which is Vinkovci Brigade, and we were official soldiers in there.
Mm.
Now I had worries that if we were a large group of foreigners, then we could either get used as cannon fodder or be blamed for something, as it happened in Osijek. Yeah. So what we did, we split up. I put just two people in. I took over, not as a commanding officer, but that everything will be all right to make things easier and better for everybody, and suggested that we put two people in each platoon. So they could be mates with each other, and they make friends with people, and it absolutely worked. Right. Until Christmas 1991, and we won't talk about that at the moment.
Okay.
And that's it.
And so, take us through your standard day.
Standard day.
I guess there were different days, some days.
You get shelled. It was through winter, and it was a very cold winter. Yeah. Basically, you're in trenches and bunkers and things like that. Yeah. Occasionally, they fire at you. There'd be artillery shells and things like that. We'd sneak up to the hospital. You'd have to crawl to the hospital because there was machine guns hitting the hospital all the time. Yeah. But in the cellar, they had a bar with beer and coffee. So that was just to go there and have a coffee and be human. Yeah. We'd risk being killed. Yeah. And that was weird. And nobody do that, but they do. Everybody did it. Yeah. We'd be on guard just most of the time. Straža, 2 hours to do the cold trench. Yeah. And then the rest of the day you're pretty much free, but you have to be there. Yeah. And that's about it. There's 1 or 2 small offensives. And that's it. Most of our people, we got hit by mortars a lot. And you got caught out in the open. But we didn't have many casualties through winter. But as soon as spring came, and there was more light, and people wanted to be outside, that's when we started having many more casualties.
And what were your family saying about the fact you'd gone?
Oh bloody hell! He's done something stupid again. Yeah.
So this wasn't out of character. I know you a little bit now. So
I've done some daft stuff all my life, and sometimes I'm quite impulsive, but I had thought this decision out quite well. Yeah.
And how long did it take that initial suspicion to subside?
It hasn't.
Still?
No, it hasn't. There's people who trust me with their daughters and trust me with their homes and cars and everything.
Yeah.
And lend me money. And these people who would rather have 200 Nigerians in this town than me.
Yeah.
You know, there's just this underlying hatred that comes from some people.
Yeah.
And they've never trusted us and never will.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a personal dislike of me or simply because I'm guilty for Bleiberg. I don't know which it is.
Yeah. So, but within the trenches, with the local, the guys you're fighting with, you got a very strong camaraderie with the.
With some, but because mainly they were from the village we were in.
Right.
And I had a very good commanding officer who I'm friendly with today. I saw him yesterday. We're great friends. He does a lot for me, and I do a lot for him. Anybody who's friendly towards me, I'm friendly towards.
Yeah, I'm not to say. Yeah. And then obviously you had a terrible incident one day.
What was that? When they ran out of beer?
Yeah, when you got to the hospital and they ran out.
Yeah.
So when you went out on patrol with your
Wounded.
your two colleagues,
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that or not really?
Not really.
Okay.
We got blown up. Simple as that. A routine patrol in a new area.
Yeah.
We really shouldn't have gone. Now I think about it, in retrospect, obviously we shouldn't have gone,
Yeah.
but we did.
Yeah.
The three of us, one was killed, one lost his leg, and I lost my foot.
Yeah.
Took us 3 hours to crawl back to our lines. There was we had to leave the dying guy, and we eventually made it. They put us in. We didn't wait for an ambulance. So of course, we'd been out for an hour and a half, and then 3 hours back, 4.5 hours. It's a hot day, 6th of June. It's humid. I was thirsty. So we were in this Spinflower driving to the hospital, and the commander's crying, and Pedro's in a lot of pain. He's screaming and carrying on. I wasn't in any pain at all.
Yeah.
Shock had closed the blood flow off, which is what shock's for.
Yeah.
So I wasn't bleeding or anything. The foot's not there, simple as that. I actually took a toe off because it was hanging off and put it in my pocket in case I could put it back on later, which of course they couldn't. They just chopped the whole thing off.
It's not here, it's in the pub, is it? This is all
Yeah, well, it's funny that I thought you might ask about that. There you go. And the way we passed the bar, and I said, stop. He says, what? I said, could you get us a couple of beers, please? And they thought I was absolutely, and that story, more than anything else, has gone around the town, Oh yeah, when he was wounded, he just wanted to go to the pub, And really, the reason was, we were bloody thirsty. We hadn't had anything to drink for nearly 5 hours. It was awful.
And so you were hospitalised in Zagreb?
I was hospitalised in Vinkovci for a couple of days, and then they transferred us out to Zagreb, which I didn't want. I wanted to stay in Vinkovci.
Okay.
That was my place.
And how was the medical treatment for that? I mean, it must have been a fairly...
I'm told by doctors who examined me in England that they did a bloody good job.
Right.
But the fact is, it was meatball surgery back in Vinkovci. You've seen MASH, haven't you? Well, it was like that.
Yeah.
I thought, well, they could save these 2 toes, and I'll just have these two and now off the whole lot. No.
Friends are here.
Friends of visitors.
So you brought the geese in for a bit of authentic background.
They want to know who you are.
Yeah, right. And then did you go back to the UK then, or you stayed here, or?
I went to hospital. They moved us to Zagreb, and it was like a prison. They had security guards, and the security guards were real assholes. Young lads, 18, 19-year-olds in their uniforms and their Ray-Ban sunglasses. They were pushing us around, actually physically pushing us around.
Yeah.
And there was a little bar around the corner called Porsche, however you want to pronounce it. And we tried to go there and have a few beers, and if we could sneak out. But they had actually come to the bar and drag us back to the hospital. We didn't have wheelchairs. I managed to find 2 crutches. One was shorter than the other one. And in the end, I just got fed up with it. And then I heard they wanted to do an operation on me, which I didn't need. This is a science operation where they actually fuse your ankle bone like that so you can't move your foot, so they can fit you with a protheser. I didn't want that because I'd lose, my muscle in my legs. And, I like to look nice. And so anyway, I refused that and I said, look, I've had enough. I'm in a prison here. I'm no use to anybody. Can you get me back to England? And by that time, I'd seen the British ambassador, and I'd seen this girl who works for the Minister of Defence, Maya Munivrana. She just got in contact with me after 30 years.
Okay.
And I said, look, I want to go to England. Right, she says, please don't go, we'll sort something out, we'll send you to the sea. Because while I was in limbo, nobody was writing to me, nobody was sending me any money or anything like that, because nobody knew where I was. I was just stuck there. So it's now send me home and I'll work it out from there. So they give me a first class flight on Croatian Airlines to Heathrow.
Does such a thing exist?
Yes, absolutely, and it was wonderful.
Okay.
But I was in my pajamas. I had nothing else except my pajamas. I didn't have a bag of possessions or anything. And my pajamas and my watch, and I forgot my watch. I had a camera watch. I left it. I didn't want to go back. So I arrived in Heathrow in pajamas and these odd crutches like that, and had to make my way to Leeds. So I had to go to Heathrow, Victoria bus station, and Victoria bus station is this long queue. And this woman came up and says, "Do you want to go to the front?" I said, "Oh yes, please." So I got my ticket, got on the bus, went to my brother's house, and fell into his arms, and that was it. I was home.
And how was the reaction when you got home? And what people
From the family.
Well, family and
Well, a little strange. Like, well, we expected from him, he's a nutter, that kind of thing. But mostly it was fine. By then, there was a different attitude towards the war. I know my friend Rodney Morgan was called a mercenary, and he kills for the price of the pint, things like that.
He was in the national tabloids, a story about
Absolutely.
And I met him, and I'm a really good friend of a woman called Vivian Grisogna.
No, are you?
She's editing my book.
Oh, right.
She lives on Croix. We've known each other for years, and so she was a physio during the war, and so she knew Rodney very well.
Yeah.
He said he was just the gentlest guy. And
He is, but he's in pain all the time, and he lashes out occasionally. And the thing is, he's been taken advantage of so much here either, but I don't think he's got a life in England either. So he's really just stuck, not knowing what to do. And he's 65 now? So he hasn't got much of a future. But he had that situation and that experience, and mine was the absolute opposite. Something had changed with the attitude of the British public and British politics. I was a hero. When I went home, I went to see a girlfriend in Newcastle, and the BBC came and interviewed me, and they were absolutely fantastic. They were talking about, I was so horrified by Serb crimes and things like that, and they were like, oh, this is different, I like this. So I was very pleased. But people's attitudes changed, and I thought I'd left something unfinished. That was end of August 92, and by Christmas Day, I was back here. I had a chance to come through with some Belgian politicians, so I took that chance and came through with them, and they left me here. And I was straight in the front line again. I had my sniper's rifle again.
You were back to fight?
I was straight down the front line because I had nowhere else to stay. So I was sleeping in an empty house on the front line, basically, when I came back, and I built my life up from there. From that, nothing. I had nothing. I had no money, hardly any clothes, nothing. I'd been clever enough to make an application for Croatian citizenship in 1990, December 1990, along with the two Bulgarians who were with us. And I just followed their lead. And eventually I got called in, and by 1993, July the 6th, 1993, which is, I believe, the day I was wounded, I got citizenship, and I was just so proud of that. I was very, very proud.
And did the Croatian government look after you in terms of war pensions?
Yes.
The
thing is, there's this horrific bureaucracy.
Yeah.
Absolutely horrific. But Pero was wounded with me.
Yeah.
I had to go through the same thing. But I also was doing the citizenship thing and getting registered and all the paperwork that comes with it, and you must know. And I just followed his lead where paperwork was concerned. If it had a problem, I said, there's something wrong with this paper. He said, oh yeah, you haven't got a stamp on that. You've got to go to Zagreb, and you've got to go on a Thursday afternoon, and go to the 10th floor of this building. It hasn't got any lift, so you've got to walk up the step and get a jig on it and bring it back, and then you get your full money. That was horrendous. It was horrendous. And I've got piles of papers like that, which are useless to me now, but I will throw them away because they're so hard to get. But I got a pension. I got invalidity. It's a very small amount. But the pension grows. I got shares and stocks on 3 separate occasions. Once for being captured, which was after the war. I'd say on the whole, Looking after the body, it's been great. Looking after the mind, not so much.
Yeah.
But it's the Croatian government did very well by me, very well indeed. It's just the paperwork that was horrific.
Okay. And now, like the first time we ever met was on November the 18th, 3 years ago, which is Vinkovci Remembrance Day.
I don't remember you whatsoever.
I don't remember you. It's everybody else. Very interesting.
Is that what we met?
And you have this annual barbecue where you have all the foreign volunteers, those that have been wounded, the eye patches, and they all come.
Very photogenic, aren't they?
They're a lovely bunch of guys, actually. And it was, to me, it was a mind-blowing evening to come in that, there's this random pub in a field, and then there's all these volunteers with all their stories coming back, and they're all remembering 30 years later. And I just got the sense of real camaraderie about you guys, that you really look after each other, and then I felt a little bit of abandonment by the state, or that some of these guys weren't really being looked after 30 years later, and kind of forgotten about and everything else. Now you mentioned like Rodney, for example, he's a bit lost, and there was that guy Nigel. What's your view on how those foreign veterans are treated today, and how they've been treated, and how they're viewed today, and how they've been treated since the war?
If you can't look after yourself, basically, you're buggered. If your friends aren't looking after you. And with Rodney, his first injury was to the brain from a mortar explosion. And of course, he didn't realise that. While he went to hospital for things about it, it doesn't say that there's any brain damage or anything like that. It was only later that he realised. So he's not getting any pension or any invalidity for that. And the thing is, his short-term memory is gone. Yeah. He could meet it today and forget about it tomorrow. Yeah. And that's a great problem for him. He cannot learn any more Croatian language than he knew at the time of the accident, at the time of the injury. Yeah. And that's affected his life greatly. He's been taken advantage of so many times. We had to actually rescue him from where he was living in Beograd na More because he was being abused so much down there and robbed legally. He actually went in 3 months in prison for something he hadn't done because he had no memory of it, It was a terrible time. So we actually spoke to a hotelier we know in this town, and he was of the same opinion. We should go down there, grab him, bring him to Vinkovci, fix his car, bring that as well, and swap his flat for one in Vinkovci, and that's what we did. Okay. Right. We rescued him basically. Yeah.
And
Nigel.
Nigel's
a special case. He's like 5 times injured in various ways, and through his injuries, he's deteriorating rapidly. But he's actually getting less and less pension. Yeah. As they're saying, he's less and less of an invalid, while he's becoming so legally less of an invalid, but in actuality, more of an invalid. So he can't look after himself. He just locks himself in his room, and we have to break down the door to get in and make sure he's fed and things like that. It's a terrible thing. But I've got my family to look after and my own life to do, and I try and help where I can. Yeah. And it's not my job. I do it because I'm his friend.
And what the sense I get is you're looked up to as kind of not like a leader, but as somebody that's, you've got your life together.
I'm intelligent. I'm used to the bureaucracy. Yeah. And
you speak language.
I don't like injustice.
Yeah.
That's the main reason I came. It wasn't for fun.
Yeah.
It's for injustice. I didn't like what was happening, and then I came, and nowadays I'm a victim of injustice. Yeah. It's rather ironic. My friends are victims of injustice, and we don't know how to fight it. It makes us very frustrated indeed.
I mean, how are you viewed now? I mean, 30 years later from when you first came, and you came to fight this injustice. You fought in this. Really quite amazing battle for a young modern country to get its independence, and against all the odds really,
we won.
Yeah. And the sacrifices that you and all these other people made, a lot of them with their lives, to form that state was a huge sacrifice. And 30 years later, you look back on all that back then and what you see Croatia today. How do you feel?
I feel betrayed that they went into the European Union.
Okay.
To me, that was a betrayal. They fought for independence. They told everybody they were fighting for independence. We want an independent Croatia. And what do? They throw away their independence for the European Union and get rid of their money as well. And when I talked to a minister about this, I said, we fought for independence. No, you were fighting so we could join the common market, the European Union.
Wow. Okay.
And I went, what?
Yeah.
Now, if you'd have said that in 91, I wouldn't have come. Really? No, I wouldn't. And I don't think anybody else would.
Yeah.
Except those who were coming for fun.
Yeah.
No, to me, it was a great betrayal. I don't know. The vote to go into it was so small. It was like a fait accompli, like it was already done. The president was talking about it. Yes, we're going to adopt this on this day. We're going, but there hadn't even been the referendum yet. Everybody was, well, are we already in? What we done? It was confusion.
It was
purposeful confusion, and I was dead against it. And I actually stood for Parliament in a small party against it. You know, we didn't get any votes. Not to mention, it was called. I can't remember the name of the party. Volim Hrvatsku.
Okay.
Neo EU. That was it, wasn't it? Is that it?
Yeah,
Yeah, that was it.
How are you perceived around town?
I don't know. You have to ask other people. That's the problem.
How was he perceived around town?
Well, it varies. You know, these people look at me and, think I'm dirt. Really.
Yeah.
Including people who weren't born when I was here.
Yeah.
But it's mainly their fathers. But there's a great deal of acceptance and there's a great deal of respect. But it's an individual thing. You can't say, oh yes, the town respects this man. They might know me, but the respect is an individual thing. Do people love me because I'm me or love me because I fought in the war? Do they hate me because I'm me or hate me because I'm English?
Yeah.
It's hard to tell. And you have to deal with it on a personal level. I've seen so much hate. Especially on the internet and everything. I don't even look much at Facebook or anything like that anymore. Where people call it, imagine I feared the most England playing Croatia at football. And I was right to have feared that. And then I feared the Queen's death. And now it's happened. The stuff I've seen is absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
People calling the Queen a rat and a shit and she should have died earlier. Creeds are live, thrown up every second post, It horrifies me. It really horrifies me and saddens me. Yeah. And sometimes I don't know what to do. But I've made my life here. And whether other people like it or not, I'm here to stay.
And you've made your life here, and you've made some really bizarre contributions to life here.
I've made some bizarre decisions. I don't know about contributions.
Well, I mean, I heard a story that you got the Yorkshire pudding on a restaurant menu in Vinkovci in 1998 or something.
I liked Yorkshire pudding, and I had a really nice chef, and he used to do roast beef. And I thought, well, if you're doing roast beef, you could do Yorkshire pudding. Yeah. He said, Yorkshire pudding, what's that? He was only about this size, was the guy, but he was great, lovely guy. And I said, well, you do this, you do it. He says, can you show me? I says, I've never done it. I'll only be mum. So I rang my mum and she told me exactly what to do and exactly when to do it. And we did it and it was perfect. So we put it on the menu for a year or two, and then the restaurant closed. I don't think it was because of the Yorkshire puddings, but it closed and it's now a very well-known cafe bar in town.
Okay.
But it was a lovely restaurant. I used to love going there.
Okay.
It was called Ruja.
Okay. And I mean, the way I first heard about you was I was in the middle
Yorkshire pudding.
Not Yorkshire pudding,
right.
No, even more bizarre than Yorkshire pudding. Was I was in town of Vinkovci and I saw.
They let you in.
They let me in, and they gave me one phone call. And they said there's a public telephone over there, and suddenly there was a red London telephone box standing in the middle of the road.
It's not London telephone box, it's from Cardiff.
Welsh
telephone box.
Now the story's now.
That makes it more acceptable, you see.
Okay, so there we are, in the oldest continuously inhabited town in Europe, you have a Welsh telephone box. And not only that, but it's actually one of the few functioning public telephones in Croatia these days.
I believe so.
And then I was told there was this crazy English guy.
A crazy one?
Apparently.
I'll see about that.
Well, I'm quoting, I'm not accusing.
Yeah, I'll sort it out.
And this led me on a journey to try and find an English pub in a field in the middle of nowhere, which is...
You've been successful there.
Which is where we are today. And with an amazing barley. If we say two more beers,
Two more beers.
two more beers might appear. So tell us first of all about the phone box, and then about the pub.
Well, the phone box was a joke. After the war, we started getting. Oh, we're having that, are we? I'm of the other. He can have that. I'm of the other. It's not cold yet. Little promotion now. It's Paul's favourite beer, actually, I know that. Anyway, after the war, during the war, after the war, there was foreign aid coming in. You know, people are bringing trucks of basically crap, which is what it was, and hand it out. Think they've done a great job and go home, think with their souls cleansed. And one of the largest one of them was a group called CARE, Croatian Aid and Relief Expedition. And they were based in Wales, around Cardiff and other places. I'm going into a Welsh accent there, sorry. And when they come over, they again brought a lot of mixed stuff and they didn't know where to deliver it, and who it should go to, or who should take care of it. And so on the second visit, I sat down with them and I said, look, it's not my business, but I've got this great idea. Select a village and just bring stuff for them, rather than just scatter it about. Find out what they need, go there, talk to people, find out what they need, and bring what they need. So when you go there, it's destroyed. What they're doing is they're rebuilding their houses. They need tools, they need bags of cement, things like that, but you're not going to bring that. You can bring money to buy something, you help by buying stuff for them, which they need to spend money on, such as washing up liquids, such as detergents, and other things, soap, things that people need. Overalls for working, things like that. Tools, especially, lots of tools, of all lots of tools. And then when it's finishing with that, then you can bring more luxury things and tools for the garden, seeds, things like that. And then stuff like what you've been bringing at first off, stuffed toys for the kids, bicycles, stuff like that. And that's how it happened. Over a 5-year period, we did that. And the village we chose was one called Seric. Now, Seric was lucky, because it was a total Croatian village, very, very close to Vinkovci, that was totally destroyed in the war. It was occupied and totally destroyed on purpose. And I was friendly with somebody in the UN because it was a girl. Her name was Piper. She's a big shot now in the US government. She was there as an assistant to Jacques Klein, who was in charge. And she came to me, she said, oh Steve, you know, we've got this list of villages that we're going to get handed back. And I went, oh, I need to see that. She said, well, all right. And so I looked through it and I said, where's Seric? She said, oh, well, Seric is a Serbian village, isn't it? I went, no, it's 100% Croatian. So if I hadn't have noticed that, Seric wouldn't, the people of Seric wouldn't have got back for another 2 years. But I noticed they corrected it and they came back. So I said, Seric. So the stuff went to Seric and it works perfectly. And at the end of it, I am rambling on a bit, aren't I? At the end of it, they said, right, Steve, what do you want for yourself? We'll come one more time and we'll bring something for yourself. Well, I don't know, a couple of barrels of beer, an English telephone box, something like that. And they went, okay, and off they went. 6 months later, I get a call. Steve, the truck's on its way. What truck? The one with the telephone box. You're joking? He says, no, we spent £3,000 making it all new. £3,000? Nearly 2,850.
Well, I have said for that.
Well, yeah, 3. And so I went, oh wow. So when's he coming? He says, oh, in about 3 or 4 hours. So I went to see them. I went to Seric and I said, look, we've got this telephone box coming, and the chief there said, oh yeah, we can put it here in the middle. I said, but we have to planning permission of that. But we could just put it like spontaneous, like some remembrance thing, but not that it's working. I'm like, I'd like it to actually work. Oh, right. So I'll leave that. So I went into town and I went to the truck stop here, right in the centre of town. And the mayor came. I think it was Carlich then. And he says, Steve, I heard about this telephone box. I said, yes. He says, well, he has to be here in Vinkovci. I said, does it? He says, yes. He says, you see there? He says, there was a telephone box there, a Croatian one, before the war. And so it's no problem for us to put it there. We'd have to get any permission or anything. I said, if you are lighting in it, and it's got a phone box, it actually can be used, people can go in and make phone calls, it's yours. And he went, well, it's yours, but yeah, we'll do that. And it happened. Within 24 hours, it was installed, concreted in. The GPO had, Croatian Telecom, dug up all the pavement all the way to the museum and laid fresh cables. Yeah, really.
In 24 hours?
You can go there now and you can still see the lumps in the pavement because they did it so badly, because it was a rushed job.
And he was functioning after 24 hours?
It's functioning. Yeah. It's got its own number. I've forgotten the number.
Right. And you post on Facebook occasionally, you go and you repaint the...
Yeah, we have to repaint it, but now I've talked to some experts who told me the right paint to use because, it was peeling off every time or going pink in the sun.
Okay.
And we've got really good paint, and the last time I did it, it still looks as good. Usually I paint it just before Vinkovci Jezene, but I don't need it looks great.
Yeah. And then this.
What's this? The pub.
What the hell?
What the hell? Now, my dream as an Englishman is to own land, like any Englishman. I don't want to have to go to Australia or India to do it. I want to own land, and I wanted to own land in England because I'm a simple working class lad, and we never even owned his own houses, anyone in the family, ever, on any branch of the family. Yeah. So my idea, no, I didn't have the idea, it was a desire. A deep desire to own land, and I'd just stand on it and say, this is mine. Ha. And it happened one day that my sergeant from the war, Melee, he might turn up any time, by the way, he usually does for his free beer, offered me his land for sale. It was just a small patch over there, and he says, come down, it says €2,400. I thought, well, is that cheap? And I compared it to English price, and yes, it was bloody cheap. So I came down, it was just mud. It was late spring and it was just mud and there was no trees and there was nothing. It was just empty, muddy land next to a railway line. So I wasn't impressed. And then I heard a nightingale sing. And I listened to it and it changed. I turned around and I said, look, Melee, I don't have €2,400. Can I pay you €100 a month for 2 years? And he went, no. And the next day he rang me back and said, yes. So I said, all right then. So I started doing that. And then I did come into a little bit of money and I managed to pay him off real quick. So what do I do with the land? So the first thing we did was plant potatoes because that's what he'd done. And then I thought, well, we need like a shed. And I said to him, can we build like a shed? He said, apparently you can build up to such a size, And so we actually, there's a thing in Croatia called an ambar. It's a kind of building on like stone or concrete or brick stilts. That's wood framed. I thought I'll do an ambar, but bigger. So I did. 4 meters by 8 meters. I did the brick things. I bought from the same guy 200 bricks to do it with. 200 kunas. There you go. Give me some bricks. Did it. Then I scrounged a bit of oak to make the frame. And bit by bit, I built it. We didn't have electric. We didn't have a generator. We had nothing. So the size of it was defined by the size of the sheets of OSB board. Because we couldn't cut it. So we had to use the full size of OSB boards. It's exactly the size of 8 OSB boards long and 4 OSB boards wide, and the height is defined as in the same way. Okay. And that's how we did it, without tools, basically. And we loved it. And we'd come down here, we'd do little bits with it. We didn't have much money then. And then this land that we're on now, we noticed it was for sale, and it was for a huge price. Then a neighbour came and said, oh, the owner's died. I says, oh yeah. He says, why don't you go see the widow about it? I said, well, that doesn't sound right, She says, well, she'll give you it for less now. I says, oh yeah, I've heard those stories before, when the man dies, they'll sell it for next to nothing. I thought, well, someone's going to buy it, so it might as well be me. I didn't feel bad about it. I just didn't feel right completely. So I went and I asked her, I said, how much do you want for this land? And that was that field, this field here. I'm going right down that way to the big trench by the big canal. And it was €3,000. I actually got my phone to the bank straight away and transferred the money to her within an hour, on the trust that we could do the paperwork afterwards, And she was totally happy, and I was absolutely in raptures. And so we took possession of the place. There was give me that, will you, honey? There was this house here. This, as you can see, it's absolute total mess. Yeah. So while nobody was looking, we knocked it down, built a cellar, and then built a house back again in exactly the same footprint because I can't break the law. I don't want to make something bigger than it shows on the plans. Yeah. But we had no need of it. It was nice to have it, but what are we going to do with it? So we thought, well, I'll make it a pub, my own pub, where I can be, maybe it'll be popular, maybe it won't, but I still have a pub. I can sit in my pub and do what I want. My barmaid, my daughter's barmaid, my own beer and everything. Wonderful. So we did that, and we built it out of crap, basically. These are old beams from the building. Yeah. These are planks we use for concreting. Yeah. The tables were given to me by the same hotelier who helped Rodney earlier, just bit by bit. And I built this and I love it.
And then some sort of fabulous little details around it.
Oh, stuff I like, you know.
What are your favourite things here?
Well, the picture of the Queen when she was 17-year-old, I really like that. Yeah. I like the mammoth tooth on the 3,000-year-old wood, which came from Bosnia, which was a present. I like my pewter, I love my pewter, so does other people. I like my drinks. People, for some reason, always bring me a bottle of something to try. Right. And they're all down there at the bottom because I don't like trying them too much. They're all very alcoholic. But every now and then we have a tasting to see what we've got. And if it's good enough, we'll put it on the shelf. Yeah, and that's how it goes.
And then one other interesting thing you're doing here is cider.
Ah, right. That was a plan. That was an earlier plan. I love cider, and it's supposed to be easy to make. And there were some kind of pseudo ciders available in Croatia, and I don't mind saying it. Some has been crap and things like that, which are nothing like ciders. But there's no legal reason that you can't call anything a cider, even if there's no apples in it whatsoever. You can call it cider. It's not like beer. In beer, there's laws. So the idea was get some English apple trees, cider apple trees, and see if they'll grow here. So we've had an 8-year experiment. We've got 60 to 70 trees, 8-year experiment to see if they can grow here. And some of them can and some of them can't. So we made our first batch of cider last year. And while I'm not completely happy with it, it's going the right way. And we're going to have a lot more this year. We're going to have at least, not much, it's not industrial scale, about 200, 300 litres of cider.
The trees are from where?
The original trees are from England, okay. And then they've had cuttings taken off and been grafted onto local trees. So an English cider apple tree in England will cost about £30. Whereas if you just buy a normal apple tree here, it'll cost you £3. Right. So for that reason, it's worth doing it like that. So I learned how to graft, and nearly all the trees you see around here are English cider apple trees grafted onto ordinary Croatian dessert apple trees. Right. And for the most part, it's worked.
And where can we try this amazing cider?
Well, I have got some in the fridge, a couple of bottles, and you know I have. Get them up very, very carefully. The thing is, I don't like the first batch. For me, it's a little sour. Okay.
Glass or
we've been drinking it as draft, but we haven't drunk anything out of the bottle yet, and I have no idea how anybody's going to react to it. But, well, I want a bottle opener. And 2 wine glasses will do us. I need them down there. I'll be fizzies.
Live on the podcast, exclusive.
Oh.
Should we share a bottle rather than open?
Yeah, I think we're on 2. For those who don't know, cider is a wine. It's produced the same way that wine is produced. And there's about 8 and 9% alcohol. Hang on a bit. Well, that's acceptable. Not the best. But it's certainly recognisable as cider. A little bit sour because there's a lot of sour apples. Because the sweeter ones don't do as well for some reason. Maybe insects like them too much. So, cheers, mate.
Cheers, man. So this is the first batch of
This is the first batch of English cider in Croatia. Please, that's wrong.
It's all right.
Yeah, it's all right then. Now, don't eat too much, because cider is known to, as how do you say?
No, I used to drink Mary down at school, at university.
Cider is very good for constipation.
Right.
doesn't give you it, it cures it. So if I can't mark it as a cider, I'll mark it as that.
Yeah, good. So you've written 3 books. One was
I've written a lot more than 3 books.
There was one about that was acknowledged as probably the worst book about war ever.
Yeah, that would be mine.
So we'll move on from that one.
All right.
And you've got a couple of other books.
That was called War and Beer.
War and Beer.
Because it goes together better than War and Peace. War and Peace are contradictory. War and Beer just go together.
Is that because you were like you're holding onto your toe and you were thirsty going past the on the way to hospital and you thought if you can't call it War and Beer, I mean.
Well, the thing is, beer was not a sedative for the war, but
it was an essential.
It was not an essential. I mean, for some people it was coffee. For me, it was beer. But we'd risk our lives to go and get one because we wanted to feel normal.
Yeah.
But
you've got a couple of books here, which perhaps shows something of interest.
Hang on, I'll wipe the beer off.
Yeah.
Right.
Metal detecting. Let's talk about that.
Metal detecting.
And tell people a little bit about Vinkovci and what it is, because people maybe don't know about the history.
Suppose I don't want to. Wow, this is good.
And we'll just cut the candles and crack open the cider.
Right. Oh, that is good. Vinkovci, as we all know, is the oldest continually settled settlement in Croatia. There might be some controversy over this, but it's stupid to even try because every culture that's ever been in this area can be found layer upon layer upon layer in Vinkovci. It's always been there. There's always somebody moved in. I mean, even right after the Romans had gone, we had the Gepids come in. And then the Slavs and Avars and everything. It's a greatly contested area. People like to live here. Not so much nowadays, but back then they did. I've got my own reasons for that, which I won't go into in case I'm criticised by my superiors at the museum. Anyway, I've been metal detecting since 1976, and my arm's getting a bit tired now. In England, and I never found anything much very interesting. Local football pitch, found a few half crowns, something like that. But here, I didn't get a metal detector until after I joined the museum, helping the museum voluntarily. And then around, I don't know when exactly, 2008. It was 2008. Somebody gave me a detector, and I detected and I started finding nice stuff. And I went to the museum to hand it in, and they weren't right happy about that. They were in fact jealous. Some members there, and they reported me to the police and things like that. Investigations, raids on the house, all this kind of thing. And eventually, they accepted that I wasn't a negative character. I was a positive character for that. And in the years ensuing that, I've worked for the museum now for many years. I've discovered something like 60 to 70 brand new sites which were unknown before.
60 to 70? 60
to 70 brand new sites. In fact, I've just found 2 this week. 2 Roman sites of every description. And I've put thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds worth, of commercial pounds worth, of artifacts into the museum. Now I help them all the time. I actually work for them. I get paid a very low wage. I get paid for so many hours. I work a lot more than that to cover each site, and I find wonderful things every time. I found things this week which a detectorist in England wouldn't find in a year. The amount of stuff, beautiful things, amazing things, and so it's got now to me that it's absolutely ordinary. Oh, look at that, another gold ring, another gold Roman ring. Oh, boring. We found one last week. And I hate to lose that. I really, really hate to lose when I see how excited other people in England get when they find a Roman coin, and we've got like 50 in a day. Who's that from? Who cares? It's so much of everything here, and I love it for that. I really, really love it.
Wonderful.
It is. It's absolutely amazing.
So you're a loving husband and
oh, come on now! Hey, let's not go too far.
The father of 6 amazing kids.
Tell us
about the family.
Here the family is my wife Dragica. Now, Dragica is a very interesting girl who I don't understand whatsoever, and nobody should understand their wives.
Right.
Nobody, because nobody can, because they're impossible to fathom. I have no idea, apart from her politics. I have no idea absolutely what she likes about anything whatsoever. She'll eat anything, so she's got no favourite foods, and I do try and pay attention, She was a lot younger than me when I married her, a lot younger, and I loved that. I thought, who wants to marry an old woman? You know, I didn't want to marry anyone my age. And then we had Paul. It's not around now. And shortly after, Emma, who turned out to be a very forward girl, walking very, very young, talking very young.
Singing
Christmas songs on YouTube, which you can find. Emma's Christmas songs.
Steve Gaunt channel, subscribe.
Yeah, yes, please. Well, you got me to that, subscribing. Anyway, within 7 years, I had 6 children. And I was still in shock from the first one. Because I really saw my wild oats when I was younger. Like, I was a late starter, 18, but I really went for it. I really, really went for it. It was good and I liked it and I went for it. And I'm surprised I never had any children. In fact, while I was in hospital here in Croatia, I actually had a sperm test to see if I could have children, because I hadn't. Well, apparently everything was all right, because in 7 years I had 6 children. That's a poor girl, a poor woman. You know, I mean, how did she put up with it? I have no idea. But they're lovely, all of them. All very, very different one from another.
Yeah.
You know, you wouldn't think they were brothers and sisters, except maybe for looks. I mean, this one's just passed her master's degree and she's working in television, telling them how to do stuff. You know, she's great. She loves it.
Fantastic. And tell me, so you're living in eastern Croatia, which is all we hear about is the emigration and the depression and the lack of all this stuff, and how people are and in general, people are not happy in Croatia.
You want my opinion on that?
And then I do, but I also want to know, because you seem to be a really contented guy who's created a life of interests and friends and things to do. And one of the things you said to me one of the times we met was, you have everything you need in Vinkovci.
I do.
Which is a town of 32,000 people.
I don't have to leave it for anything.
And so, tell us a bit about how contented you are and what the secret is when everybody else is like emigrating and just complaining.
Be happy for what you've got.
Right.
Enjoy your family. Enjoy the sun. Enjoy the beer. Enjoy life. Enjoy the festivals. Don't try not to be negative. You can be negative about things. I'm often reporting people dumping stuff in country lanes, which is horrible here. They do it a lot, and it annoys me. But I don't let it get me down too much. Yeah. Enjoy life. People will try and make things hard for you, and you just got to overcome that. Yeah. People like making things hard for you. People like to push you around. People like bureaucracy. People like to stand in line. Powers are everywhere. Things are here that's going to piss you off intensely. You just got to get by that, and you can do that with a family and having a place like this and keeping geese and picking apples and doing things like that. I don't need to be rich. I don't want to be rich. I've got a crappy little car. I've got a lovely family, and I've got a huge mortgage on a flat. And I can't say I'm not content. I aren't that content, because I'm always looking what more, but not in a greed kind of way. Now, these people leaving, they think there's no future for them here. Why? Because they expect people to give them stuff. They're like a bird in a cage. They get fed every day. As soon as you let them out, they have no idea what to do. And I've seen that. I've seen families collapse because they've left the old communist system. I knew a family who were, the 2 sons were real Tito soldiers, you know, and everything. Communists. One of them was actually called Yugoslav. His name? Yeah, and they had a flat in Hvar, they had a weekend in Malabozna, they had a flat in Vinkovci, a weekend in Hvar, they had everything. And when it collapsed, they did not know what to do, and they failed utterly. The eldest son committed suicide in Amsterdam, another one lived in Portugal and married some big Brazilian black woman, and who had children by other people. They just thought less of themselves. They absolutely fell apart. Whereas other people are able to cope with it. It was a huge jump from being looked after, you know, being kept in a gilded cage, to have to fend for yourself. And a lot of people think, well, not that my country's crap, because they'll support their country, but I can do better in another country. And to some respects, I can name 3 women who left Vinkovci and went to Leeds, London, and another place, who become CEOs in companies. They actually run companies in England. They were absolutely right. But these women who are leaving Croatia to go and work in Ireland, cleaning toilets in a hotel, doing jobs that Irish wouldn't do, that to me is horrifying.
And they wouldn't do it in Croatian.
They wouldn't do it in Croatian, and the Irish wouldn't do it. They got to England. The Irish were all in England, the English are all in Croatia, and the Croatians are all in Ireland. It's a little bit mixed up.
Yeah. How do you see Croatia today? Do you think are you optimistic about Croatia's future?
No, because we've given away our sovereignty. Right. All I hear all the time is it's an EU directive, and we have to do it. And that's affecting things, like the way the bins are being emptied even, you know, I mean, I get huge bills now. Oh, well, you have to have this bin for this kind of thing, and this bin for this kind. It's an EU directive, and you have to pay for it. You've no choice. I don't like that. And they actually blocked my account, because they put the price up double, but I just kept paying the same amount. Next thing you know, my account's blocked, and they're taking the money out of it.
But apart from the EU thing, what's your opinion?
Apart from the EU thing, I wish there was a bit more optimism amongst people. People can turn stuff. I mean, I look around and go, "Ooh, I can do that. Ooh, I can do that." After the war, I became a very well-known photojournalist. There was a big chance that nobody else was doing it. I just had an on camera and I did it. I ended up working for 14 and 15 magazines. I was the most prolific photographer in the whole of Croatia. I made fortunes. I had money in my pocket all the time. Television broke. No, there you are. I have to buy a new one. That's how it was back then. And that's when things were expensive. And your first computer cost you £1,000. You know, a tiny little horrible computer, which I did. I was one of the first with a computer. I had the first digital camera in this town. It took floppy disks. Do you remember that? Oh dear. But I made a name for myself in that, and I used to. Every time a child was born, I'd save the newspapers from that day to give to them when they were 18, and I always had a photo on the front page. Always. That all stopped in 2000, 2001, when SDP came into power, and it just stopped within a week. Nobody hired me anymore. About the same time, digital cameras came into popularity, so there is that as well.
You think that's maybe slightly related to it? Great chat. What's next for Steve Gaunt?
Well, that's just it. I don't know. I'm 65 now, and people say, "Oh, relax." I can't. I'm always looking for what's next. I'm always looking to change things. And on the political level as well. I try and be influential. Like there's a lot of things about this festival that's on now, Vinkovci, yes, and I don't like, and I want to change. And I complain in my own way, but I can't complain too much because I'm English. And when people see me saying, "Oh, I don't like this is wrong," things like, "Well, what are you, foreigner? How dare you speak about Croatia?"
Have your kids had problems because they've had a...
You have to ask them. I don't know.
Kid, have you had problems having a cranky English dad?
No, never.
Really?
No, not really. I mean, people come to me, "Oh, your dad. Your dad does this, and I'm like...
What do you mean he does this?
He drives like a maniac.
And I am one of the best drivers in this town.
Of course you are.
Really, I take great care because I get pulled all the time.
Right. So you think the police target you a little bit?
I know they target me. They've admitted it.
Because
I've been rude to them in the past. I once found some hand grenades in a field, metal detecting, and I went to the nearest police station, which turned out to be Interventni Policija. And I said, "Look, I don't know the number for, to report this. Could you maybe do that for me? I've got hand grenades by the side of the road there. I really don't want to put them in my car and take them to the police station in town." And they threw me out. No, and I said, turn around and I said, "Well, look, if someone gets killed, some kids go by and pick up their hand grenades, it's not my fault, it's yours." And since then, they've not been very friendly. But I don't need them to be friendly.
You have your piece here,
Yeah.
Give me 5 things that you really love about Vinkovci.
Oh, I love the history. I love that. That's one, isn't it?
Pick one. You can do subsections.
I love that it's gently famous. The oldest town and things like that. And people come here and they like it and go, "Oh, I like this town." But they never know why. And it's the same with me. I can't think of living anywhere outside Vinkovci. I'd feel a traitor if I left Vinkovci, went to live by the sea or something like that. I've had these options, I've had offers. And I said, no, I fought in Vinkovci, and I'm a part of it, and I watched it grow. I just remember one day, it was Easter '92, and we were being shelled, and I'm going past the house, and I looked, and there's a woman raking her lawn.
Wow, the shell going.
There's a shelf going, I want to get inside, oh, they won't hit me, she says, and this indomitable spirit, I loved it. Someone's house is smashed up, and then the roof, and the next day you go by, and all the tiles are back on again. There's none of this hanging about, waiting. You know, they really got on, and the way this town just became alive again. Because the first time I walked across it, I didn't see a single person. And then all of a sudden, this life is coming back, just flowing into it, and I loved it. And I wanted to be a part of it, especially for there. If I'd been somewhere else, not so much so. Vinkovci is a special place. It gets you right in the soul. I don't know why that is. I can't define it. I can't bottle it. I just don't know.
Yeah.
But I can't leave it either. It's not the prettiest town. Yeah. It's not a rich town.
Yeah.
But it's got its own brewery.
Yeah, it's got it. The centre is beautiful, and I love the way the Orion calendar is built into the. It's got a great Welsh telephone box.
Yeah, well, it has got that, but I'm the one who paints it.
Yeah. And how do you feel about Vukovar on November 18th these days?
I don't much.
You don't feel
I don't much. It's still a strange place. You know, people are still divided there, and always will be.
Yeah.
Somebody's got arrested going to a wedding waving the Serb flag out the window, things like that. So that kind of stuff's always going to happen, and I couldn't live like that. I'd be a bit more physically active, and I really don't want to be.
How important is the November the 18th?
It was very important. The thing is, with a lot of people, it's remembrance, crying, talking about your loved ones who you lost and things like that. The people of Vukovar, and that's very, very important. And it should always be in the limelight. It should always be there. But for us, it's starting to change a lot. We were very sad, and I've got to say, I've been on every single one. From the very beginning when there was 40 people to when there's been like 100,000. And I'll never miss it. My kids never miss it. We all plan to go there. And it's becoming also a huge social event. You're meeting people we haven't seen for a year. The last time we saw them was in Vukovar.
Do you know what? The first one I went to was 2019.
Yeah.
And that's not when we met the first time. And it was horrific. It was my first exposure to that. And I was kind of really disgusted by the politicians and everything else and the way they were going. But I went again last year, 2021. And it was the first, because of COVID, there wasn't really anything in 2020. And about 50,000 people, I think it was.
Yeah.
And it was much more of a party atmosphere.
It's getting that way, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was, do you know what? It was beautiful.
It was.
And I spent a lot of time with local people and stuff. And I, when we went to the cemetery, it was noticeable that you had, for every one person who was kneeling by a grave, remembering, you had 10 other people taking selfies. Together.
Yeah.
Here we are in Vukovar 2021 and kind of stuff like that. And it didn't feel disrespectful at all. It felt like
it felt right.
It was 30 years.
Yeah.
And it was
it is like that. It's like nobody's ever said to me, "Hey, you should be laughing and smiling and drinking." Yeah. This is a day about being a miserable bastard.
Yeah.
But nobody does that.
Yeah.
They're happy to see other people there. They're happy to see us, The foreign volunteers, we always meet in the same place. Everybody knows where we are.
Yeah.
We always move from the same place. We know what we're doing.
Yeah.
We know the whole system. We don't like the changes where there's extra security or things like that. We know what we're doing.
Yeah.
We don't like that we have to wait for politicians before they start and things like that, because it's nothing to do with the politicians.
Sure.
If they want to pay their respects, they can be somewhere down in the middle of the line, not right in the front of it.
No.
In fact, one year we jumped in front of them,
Okay.
and the security asked us to not be in front of them and go behind them, and we wouldn't.
Anything like that, move us if you want to.
Yeah.
No, I thought it was and I'm going to go again this year because I just find it a really inspiring. There's parts of it that's really disgusting, and there's part of it that are really, really inspiring. So.
Well, when you think about what happened, but it's something that needs to be remembered. And now people, I haven't heard anybody say, "Well, look, this is 30 years ago. Get over it."
Yeah.
Nobody says that.
No.
And I hope it goes on forever. Even if people may forget their original reasons.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful event.
Yeah.
It's a day of sadness, but it's a day of joy because you're meeting people you haven't seen for years. And every year I meet somebody who's been missing from my life for so many years, because they live far away and they come and
they can't come every year.
oh my God, they hadn't seen you since we were in Delnitz, this, or people I was in hospital with, or that.
Yeah.
People I don't even recognise or know anymore.
Yeah.
It's always great.
It's interesting. I was with the earthquake in Petrina.
Where? Petrina?
The earthquake in December 2020. I'm there and I'm talking and I'm interviewing a guy in Majska Poljana, which is where the epicenter was.
Right.
And he says, "Oh, you're English?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, you know Steve." And he was a guy that fought with you, and kind of like, so that's that kind of country. It's kind of small.
It is.
And there's the war. I mean, I wasn't anything to do with the war. Like when I said at the beginning, like I don't know any who did fight the war until I met you. But that sort of camaraderie and different parts of society all came together.
Yeah.
And they've gone on to be CEOs here, everything else. But you come to Vukovar, I guess, and you're all still the same
people we were. Yeah. I mean, I thought I mixed with. As a journalist, as a photojournalist, I was never a journalist. I used to mix with politicians all the time, and there was never a damn us with you. I was their mate, basically, and I'd talk to Vladimir Sheks or Jadranko Kosa. Was people say she's my girlfriend? Never mind, it's not true. I'd like to deny that. That never happened. And
should see what she says.
Yeah, well, ask her. Yeah, but there was very much a camaraderie, even amongst important people.
Yeah.
And us scumbags at the bottom, we were in Vukovar, someone levelled everything.
Yeah.
It's like I never got a chance to talk to what's her name? The president? Kolinda. I never got a chance to talk to her. Kolinda never noticed me before, but she noticed me at Vukovar. And that's nice in a way.
Let's finish on a topic that
cider. Finish our cider.
We'll finish our cider, definitely. And we'll continue on with the cider. But let's finish with a topic I know is very emotional for you.
Oh dear.
She's here, the photograph. She's there as a 17-year-old. Do
Jesus.
you want to say a few words about the Queen?
Yeah, well, Her Majesty. Everybody said everything that can be said about the Queen. Mostly positive, but there is some negative things here. And I'd be dreading her death, not for the reasons that are me, so which I do, she was like my grandmother, I know she's gone. And we'll never see her again. She's been there all through my life, I know she's gone. Yeah. And I didn't need to meet her, I didn't need to talk to her, I just need to know that she was there, and she's not. And the hate and the outpouring of disgust that I've seen from Croatians about her is just
some Croatians.
Brought some, oh God, only some, thank God only some.
No,
many people have come up to me on the street and said,
no,
my children, and they really mean it.
Yeah.
But others, luckily, have avoided saying anything else negative to my face. But on social media, it's horrific. I've actually turned off my computer, and I won't look at that now for months.
Right.
I don't care how much business I lose because it's disgusting.
Right.
Then she's got her place here. Here when she was 17.
Yeah.
Here when she made the famous portrait for the stamp.
Yeah.
There were the day she was coronated. And of course Richard III.
The third. So Richard III, so the White Boar is named after...
The White Boar is named after his emblem, the White Boar. There he is again, up here. The thing is, you might notice some sun emblems all around the pub, because I was going to call it the Sun Inn. Yeah. And then I give people on Facebook a choice. You can be, here's a choice, the Sun Inn or the White Boar, and it was like 98% for the White Boar, so the Sun Inn emblems are a bit obsolete, but White Boar it is.
Right, well, shall we toast to Her Majesty?
Yes. To Her Majesty, may she rest in peace, and God save the King.